Hi, welcome back to Mountain Jim Card Collectibles. So, one thing I've noticed about, our current age of sports cards versus TCG is it really makes me feel like I did in the 1980s to an extent, okay? And that may be confusing to you if you didn't grow up in the 80s or even the 90s. But, growing up in the U.S. in the 1980s, I definitely had more freedom than I would have had in the Soviet Union. Okay? Now, going from the 1980s to 1990s, I definitely got a lot more freedom in the 1990s, I felt, than I had in the 1980s in the U.S., okay? Meaning that, the 1990s, I live here in Montana, we didn't even have, speed limits on the interstate. And so I was driving over 100 miles per hour on the interstate. And when you don't have speed limits, you give yourself speed limits, okay? But what I'm getting at is, I'm used to freedom. I'm used to freedom of choice. I'm used to, when I buy sports card products, I'm used to competition and, choosing the type of card that I like, as long as it's a licensed product. But lately, the sports card realm feels to me like the Soviet Union in the 1980s, okay? And here we have a map of, the blue countries are NATO. Obviously, the red countries are tied to the, former USSR or the Soviet Union. But, when I look at TCG and I look at sports cards currently, the current model, I really feel like you have just a lot more freedom in the world of TCG, okay? You're basically NATO at this point in time. And you're tied in with the US, Canada, all the free countries of the world. To me, that's what represents our current age of TCG, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, One Piece, Magic the Gathering. Yeah, you are up against scalpers, But nonetheless, you can go to your Walmart or Target or some other box store, purchase your Pokemon cards, and pull out an awesome card, okay? That's valued for a lot of money, all right? And the thing is there's just a lot of freedom when it comes to TCG in comparison to our current age of sports cards, all right? Because anymore, when I think of sports cards, and I know that they're clamping down on unlicensed products now, like the NFLPA is. I just feel like I don't have any freedom of choice. I don't feel like I even have freedom to consume cards, okay? Which really feels like kind of the old West German, East German mentality of the 1980s. We've got the 99 Luftballons. I don't know if you know the story about the 99 Luftballons, but basically a guy was at a Rolling Stones concert in West Germany. They let go of some balloons and they floated towards East Germany. And the guy thought that, they could possibly start a nuclear war, because it's floating over into the East German border. Okay, that's the story of 99 Luftballons, That's an old song from the 1980s. But I kind of feel the same way, okay? The way that these sports leagues, like the NFLPA is clamping down on unlicensed product, all right? And so when you get more into sports cards, it almost feels like you're living in East Germany and you're looking across the Iron Curtain, the old walls of Berlin into West Germany. It's like, what's going on in West Germany? All those TCG people are just living it up. They have all this beautiful freedom. And here in the Soviet Union / current age of sports cards, I just feel like I have cuffs on, behind my back. I mean, freedom. I mean, freedom of what? Go to prison? you know, And to be a good Soviet, you must buy licensed Fanatics-Topps product. That's what a good Soviet does. And that takes me to this article. Now, this came out on May 3rd, 2026, and a lot of people aren't talking about it. I mean, really, I only saw a few people talking about this, Strangely enough, Jeff Wilson probably talked about it more than anybody else. But to me, this represents the Soviet Union, okay? The NFLPA files lawsuit against Leaf trading cards as Fanatics era begins. Yeah, no, it's Fanatics era begins. But the way I read it as Soviet Union era begins. You have no freedom. You are now living in the sports card Soviet Union. And the parallels are just astonishing, They really are, And when you get into this article, you basically find out that, well, the NFLPA is mad that Leaf is putting numerous active players within their sets, okay? And honestly, we all know that unlicensed product has been doing this forever, okay? So why are they having a problem with it now? And we all know why. It's like it says there, Fanatics era begins. Soviet Union sports card era begins. You no longer have a freedom of choice. All you can do is bend your knee to the Topps Fanatics era, okay? Pokemon Center to me really represents, Uncle Sam to an extent. Freedom of choice, like the freedom I had in the 1980s, when I knew all those Soviets, or people living in the Soviet Union, they didn't have many rights at all, And so, strangely enough, TCG, Pokemon, and the other ones, like Yu-Gi-Oh!, One Piece, Magic the Gathering, whatever, even Dragon Ball Z, whatever, To me, they represent the red, white, and blue. They represent the 1980s ideological belief of NATO. And when you cross into sports cards anymore, it just feels like you're crossing into East Germany, doesn't it? You're just going straight into the sports card Soviet Union with, who's the big czar and, the Soviet Union. Or, I guess they'd have a president in the Soviet Union. But I like to call him a czar. Tsar Michael Rubin. That is your new czar. That is your new Caesar. To me, when I just see that word Fanatics Collect, I just imagine barbed wire, walls, guards. We got the 99 Luft Balloons song planned, We have Tsar Michael Rubin roaming around, living in the Kremlin of sports cards. It's just a total joke. I mean, today's era of sports cards is a total joke. And yesterday I put out an episode about beta males, and how they have just more or less destroyed, the sports card era by always licking the boots of these guys for the most part, being their like kind of pseudo girlfriends, the PSA and Fanatics and Topps and all these, horrible corporations for the most part, So that's my view of today's era of sports cards, And I know since they're going to really start clamping down on unlicensed products, you just have to see it yourself. I mean, it just feels like sports cards are the classic Soviet Union. TCG at this point is the USA, Canada, and NATO. I love freedom, Yeah, we're dealing with some high prices here and there in the USA, which is a total nightmare. But we still have a freedom of choice for the most part. Until you really start stepping into sports cards these days, at least new modern sports cards, You can always go back and, pick up some old packs of junk wax, which I recommend doing. If you can find some packs of junk wax, they're usually cheap, maybe $2-3 a pack. Hey, buy them, rip them open. You're going to get a lot better players for the most part, And, junk wax really was, the classic age of sports cards in my lifetime because of all the opportunities that I have for freedom of choice. And then, what I saw in the junk wax era was just a lot better designs, because that's what you get with competition is you just get companies who are trying to out-design each other, really pushing the envelope for creating better sports cards, And I really didn't realize it at the time in the junk wax era that was happening. I was still growing up for the most part, So anyway, leave some comments. Comments are awesome. I'd like to thank my subscribers. You're the reason I keep doing this because I'm still not monetized. If you give me a thumbs up, that would be great. I'd like to thank my viewers as well. If you could subscribe to my channel, that would really help me out. And keep an eye out for the subscription list with new episodes. Anyway, I hope you have a great day. I'm out of here. Bye.